You're listening to Sweet Bytes with Sandra with your host, Sandra Colton-Medici. Tune in every Thursday to satisfy your entrepreneurial sweet tooth. Follow on Instagram at Sweet Bytes with Sandra Podcast and Sandra Colton-Medici. You can also join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Sweet Bytes with Sandra. Hi, I'm Sandra, and I'd like to invite you to subscribe and listen to my new podcast, Sweet Bytes with Sandra. Satisfy your entrepreneurial sweet tooth in each episode, full of digital business tips, inspiring interviews, asides from my entertainment career, and rewards to celebrate your sweet success. Find Sweet Bytes with Sandra on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Welcome back to Sweet Bytes with Sandra. I'm so excited to have this very special guest with me today, Meryl Johnson. She is the head of digital marketing for the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello. It's so great to be here.
Yay. Well, so I'm excited to talk to you because you have so much experience that I am just like, when I read your resume, I'm like, okay, I need to talk to this girl because she has done it. She's been there, done that, especially in the digital realm. So let's talk about, what do you think is the biggest change that you've seen from the beginning of your career until now, as far as in digital marketing or in just marketing in general?
I think especially in digital, there's been this transition of just having like a place, just being visible to actually having strategy. And I think that's been the biggest change. And from the time that I've been throughout my career, I've been at legacy organizations, and that's where I've seen that biggest transition. It's this idea that if you are there, they will come. And that's not how digital marketing works. Like, you have to put targeted strategies into place. You have to utilize every aspect of digital marketing to bring people into your organization. But also you have to have a real brand strategy. So I think digital was seen as this kind of thing over here to the left. Oh, those geeks, those nerds, they'll kind of figure it out. Maybe we don't understand what they're doing, but they're doing something over there. To now being fully integrated into your overall strategic vision for how you want to at least even reach people, and being fully immersed in every single aspect of traditional marketing, of creative marketing, of content marketing. It all really sits under digital marketing. So if you notice, people don't have the role of digital marketing so much anymore. They're just marketers, and they have experience in the digital space because you need it. You need it to survive, you need it to evolve, and you need it to innovate.
Well, so when you just brought up traditional marketing, so let's talk about that for just a second. And I don't even think I sent you over these questions, but I feel like, what do you spend the most money on then? So are you doing the print and the TV and the radio as like 10%, and the rest is a 90%? Like, where do you feel like the bulk of budget is going to then?
I think for budgeting, it's still expensive when you think about traditional marketing. TV advertising is still very expensive. Cable advertising is even expensive. And even when you get into like streaming from Hulu, which is probably the biggest place where you can stream, or things like Philo or other some of those ancillary streaming platforms, that's still kind of expensive. It's expensive to make a commercial versus a kind of digital spot. And 9 times out of 10, most companies are going to take their commercials and then they're going to transition them into digital spots. So it's still this situation where you're spending 60% of your budget sometimes more on the traditional marketing, because when you print, it's not just the design, it's also what you're printing out. And because most of my experience is in the entertainment space, when I think about it, I think about billboards and posters and all of the aspects that go into that, all the collateral materials that you need to have when you're doing events. Like, all of that is still necessary. So though there is a shift to where people are spending more on digital, it really depends on the campaign. It depends on the need, and it also depends on who you're trying to reach. I've worked on campaigns where we've spent, more like 60, 70% on digital. and spent way less on traditional because it was more of a digitally focused type of campaign. So those do happen, but they don't happen that often because a lot of times most people think that when you're spending more money on digital, you're reaching a much younger audience, which is it's true. Like you're reaching an audience 13 to probably 44. And you know that those people are probably not watching TV as much as they normally would. But they are out looking at billboards. They're out going to bars. They're out, having, maybe not so much now that we're in COVID, but
right.
in a more, in a normalized world, that's where they're at. So I think the balance is based off of the need. And I'd like to have more money, but
won't we all?
It'd be nice to have larger budgets, but I've gotten used to making a lot happen with very little.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's every company. It's kind of like, here's your little marketing budget. And you're like,
well, I think the other challenge is that they don't realize that just because it's digital doesn't mean it's less expensive, and I know that commercials are more expensive, but when you start thinking about building out immersive sites and then integrating, targeted strategies and having a content management system, but also having a CRM so that when you're building those consumer relationships, like when you start to put all of the pieces together of what you need to be data focused as well as strategically kind of in the front end, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So it will be nice to see how companies start to transition more into that space, or more traditional companies. When you look at like Netflix or streaming platforms or more of the digital tech companies, they get it. And when we look at companies that are starting to make the transition to digital, they get it too. And they realize, when you have a data scientist, that person is not cheap, but they can really change the trajectory of your entire organization and your company to really get that return on investment.
Exactly. Well, and science is so good, especially all those analytics. Well, so can you share a few lessons from your career? Just because I know you've worked for United Artists and CMA, just big organizations in addition to where you work now. But just some of the things that you've learned as far as best practices in your career, or things that maybe you didn't know that you could help somebody by telling them now, like, do this so that they don't encounter that problem in the future.
I think the biggest lesson I always tell people is to have a holistic approach. Never approach it in one direction or the other. Think about it from all of the aspects of how you can market and reach individuals. So when you think about content, for example, I think some people think you create a piece of content, let's say it fits all the best practices, you put it up, and then you expect it to go viral. Well, that's not realistic. And being viral is this like nice buzzy word that people like to use, but in its essence, it's kind of like a whole lot of things coming together to really make that make sense. So it's taking that piece of content and saying, okay, where do we apply media? Where do we apply our proper social practices? How are we also looking at influencer strategies and how we can reach this? How are we applying digital publicity? Because that's, I think, is an oversight and is overlooked. And then how are we also really thinking about those targeted approaches and who we're actually speaking to? So that way we're getting kind of the baseline of people who will really, interact with that piece of content, but also kind of make sure that the algorithm is reaching more people that you're really looking to reach. So looking at all of those different pieces and starting to put it together is something that I always tell the people that either report to me or people that I'm educating on digital marketing, because I think people think of it as very myopic. A website in their mind is very myopic, but all of the back-end analytics, there's all the SEO, there is sometimes the targeted marketed approaches, whether you're just doing a Google campaign or Facebook campaign or both. It's all of those different pieces that are fitting together. And it's not necessarily being 100% of an expert in everything, because it's a lot to try to take in, but it's being an expert enough to know where to apply those strategies so that way you're seeing the most success from them.
Well, so you mentioned influencers. And so I want to ask you, especially you working for the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, you have kind of ready-made influencers in the projects that you're putting out, right? So, the stars are influencers in themselves because they're celebrities. So how much of outside influencers, whether they are, models or, YouTube stars or whatnot, how much of that do you rely on when you're putting out campaigns for, during award season or whatnot? Like, what part of that do you pull from, or do you want to stay away from?
Yeah, I think the Academy is a little bit different because the members are our influencers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and I've been at the Academy now for about 4 months. So in my time there, the way that we're starting to transition things is to think about what is our general audience and how do we also get them to watch the show? How do we get more awareness about all the various amazing things that are happening at the organization?
Mm-hmm.
There is programs to create pipelines. There's nonprofit and social impact opportunities. So it goes much deeper than the Oscars, and we have this 364 strategy. So within that, outside of just the one day of the show, that's where we're looking to tap maybe influencers that are outside of the realm of our normal membership. So that way we can target people who are not just interested in film, but interested in film and also some of the social impacts, some of the pipelines, some of the various activities that we have. Because not every member has the social reach that you would think. There's a lot of actors and people behind the camera that they don't have that. So it's a combination of creating more awareness for those filmmakers that don't necessarily want to have that digital footprint, but we feel like the work is so important. The artistry that they bring on screen is so amazing and beautiful. And also from a worldwide perspective, bringing more awareness to filmmakers outside of just the United States. You're looking at, some of our Latin American filmmakers and what we're doing in Africa and what's happening in China and Japan and Taiwan. And there's so many different, and Europe, just France. When you look at, as a Black woman, I love Black French cinema. And there's just so much beauty and storytelling associated with it. So you kind of have to go outside of the boundaries of just looking at, okay, this Melina Mastukas, who is not necessarily a member, but is in the industry, how can we also bring her into the fold? But also, how do we then attach her to somebody who is not as well known, or how do we maybe associate her with somebody who is an influencer in the tech space or in the photography space or in the fashion space? So we're starting to create those connections of where entertainment and things outside of the world of entertainment overlap. So we're reaching more individuals. Nice. So we're kind of at the beginning of that because we're getting into the season due to COVID, everything kind of had to push back. So it's going to be an interesting season that I think everybody's going to see. And some of the new aspects of how we're going to be going about it, especially knowing that with Aperture 2025, we've wanted to make sure to create more opportunities for people of color and for people with disabilities and just for people outside of the realm of what you traditionally know as being a part of the Academy. But I love an influencer strategy. I've always tapped into an influencer strategy throughout my career. So I've used a mix of social influencers, mommy bloggers, book enthusiasts. I mean, it really just depends on what we're trying to sell. But a good influencer and a good group of influencers will take you far. If it's organic and it feels like, it's all about doing it in their voice and not making it feel as though you're trying to fit something where it doesn't necessarily fit.
Exactly. Well, so when you are thinking of, because you mentioned, it was something where you were talking about the social footprint. That's what you were talking about. What are some of the buzzy buzzwords? Because footprint, I remember footprint to me, it always reminds me of when people talk about the carbon footprint. And so, like, where are you, are you buying too much gas? Well, so when you think about buzzwords, right? What is the buzziest buzzword that you are so over in 2020 that you could just do without and replace it with something that we need to be talking about in 2021 as far as what you do in your field?
I think I mentioned a little bit before viral. I hate the word viral because it's like viral and big idea. Because because, you know, it's this thing where people feel like that once something becomes viral, it takes them to a whole different level. And because you're unaware of the pieces that are put together in order for something to become viral, kind of like just being in the right place at the right time type of situation.
Yeah.
It being something that just happens to be of the moment. There's so many marketers that try their best to make something go viral.
Yeah.
And it's like chasing a dragon. You can't really make something go viral. I think you can put enough money behind it to make it feel like it could be viral, but being viral is such a organic opportunity. You know, look at the ocean spray guy, the guy on TikTok who just like, he didn't know
the
that,
skateboard guy.
The skateboard guy.
Yeah.
Who knew that that would be a video that would go quote unquote viral?
Yeah.
But so now you've got brands who are trying to like recreate that, and you can't like it's just this fleeting lack of necessity of trying to take resources and make something feel bigger than what it is. And digital marketing, as I always tell people, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You know, you've got to just keep moving and keep doing and keep learning and testing and just going through the processes, and know that you'll have growth. It's just all about creating as many tactics as possible to create growth. But you don't have to have that like one flash in the pants thing that's going to then make you the next big thing. So I would like to replace viral with just authentic. You know?
Okay.
Just authentic, because authenticity eventually could make you viral, you know, but it's not a something that I always try to reach for. I never, ever, ever try to go viral.
Right.
I just try to be authentic. Let's just tell the story. Let's speak to people the way that they want to be spoken to. Let's know our audience and who we're speaking to. And then we'll have that growth.
Yeah.
But it bothers me. Viral and big idea. Like, so what makes a big idea? You know, is it one particular idea? Is it a bunch of big ideas? If it's just really selling people on something? I think of a big idea as like a used car salesman, and it's just somebody coming in and selling you on a thought, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to translate into that next big thing. It just feels like it's big. So that's a tactic that I think Hollywood likes to use in marketing. It's just, what is the big idea, guys? Like, what are we doing? It's just like, can we just come up with ideas and see what happens? Can we just execute?
Execute. So you're replacing big idea with execute and viral with authenticity. And I'm here with you 100%. Well, so I know that you have been there in so many different campaigns. What is something that you can say is an inspiring experience, or maybe a terrifying thing that went wrong, or something that you were like, that was so good. You know what I mean? Like that was really good. That you've had an experience on in a previous campaign, whether it's in your job right now or in a previous company.
I would say my most favorite campaign, the campaign that really helped me to learn a lot about the power of my own capabilities, was probably when I worked on the film Get Hard. And it was starring Kevin Hart and Will Ferrell. And I wanted to do something that was different. I didn't want to do a traditional digital campaign. I wanted to go to South by, and I wanted to create a moment where we were really taking the various aspects of what's great about these two guys and how they interact with each other, and the kind of friendship that they built on set, and just their relationship. So again, going back to authenticity. Yeah. So we went back and came up with a bunch of ideas that related specifically to how Kevin Hart does comedy and how Will Ferrell does comedy, and how that comedy comes together. So we created this amazing activation at South by Southwest. I was also working on Entourage at the same time. So I think I practically almost killed myself going through the process of activating these films at this festival. But I wanted to do a takeover of South by, and that's what we did. I did a partnership with Funny or Die, where they created a video that was custom. The director of the film actually directed the video. I wanted T.I. in it. T.I. said yes. Kevin was in it. Will was in it. And it was really switching it up to where Will Ferrell was auditioning for all of Kevin Hart's parts in movies, and Kevin Hart was auditioning for all of Will Ferrell's parts in movies. So it was really funny. We launched that content piece at South by, and with an event centered around Funny or Die. They have this event that they do every single year, so we just took over the event. And then we also had the guys go out on the streets of Austin, and they did like a man on the street thing where they just talked to people. They talked to people, they did bits. Like it was just seeing them together. And then we had our junket there, and we also had a premiere there. So we just really took the whole festival, and we said, how do we really take all the best parts of South by and then insert these guys into it. And it was really successful. And it allowed it to be, I think, one of the highest R-rated comedies at that time.
I love that film. I just love it.
It's so funny.
It seems, I mean, the plot is obviously unrealistic, but at the time I was like, this could happen. This could happen.
Maybe. But it was this understanding of just team effort, and also working with talent and doing things that talent wants to do, not just what we think talent should do.
Right.
And really taking the time to understand who is it that we want a part of these content pieces, and how do we like construct something around them? How do we make them feel like they're the most comfortable that they could possibly be in their own space? So I think it was a learning experience of not just working with the team at Warner Bros. And it was at the time an amazing group of people, and there's a lot of those folks are still there. But it was also just everybody getting inspired and coming together and feeling energized by it. And Kevin and Will are both amazing to work with. I mean, Kevin is crazy, and he's super nice, and he's super amenable. So it was just a really amazing experience.
Nice. Well, so I have asked you to stick around for something called Extra Bite, and you have agreed. So I'm so excited. So if you're listening right now, make sure you finish out the episode, but then head on over to Extra Bite for a little bit more with Meryl Johnson. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining me on Sweet Bytes with Sandra today.
I loved it. Thank you so much. This is so much fun.
Tune in every Thursday to satisfy your entrepreneurial sweet tooth with me, Sandra Colton-Medici, on Sweet Bytes with Sandra. Follow Sweet Bytes with Sandra on Instagram at Sweet Bytes with Sandra Podcast. You can also follow my personal profile at Sandra Colton-Medici. And please join our group on Facebook. It's facebook.com/groups/Sweet Bytes with Sandra. And all the time, Bytes is spelled BYTES.